Welcome, and thank you for clicking on this video. In this one, we're going to be checking out the Hils short scale headless bass. This is called the Hils HNB3. How cool is this? But does it sound cool? Stick around, let's find out. This features a mahogany body, a bolt-on 5-piece maple neck with walnut stringers, a laurel fingerboard, and of course, headless design where the tuners are down here on this monorail bridge and the strings are clamped up here behind the nut. This is an entirely passive setup with a single ceramic humbucker in the so-called sweet spot position. The controls are volume and master tone. This bass was made in Indonesia, and when I put it on the scale, this one came in at just a hair over 6 pounds, so really light. Another cool feature of this bass is the attempt at making the most ergonomic playing design. So here, you can put this surface on your thigh and play like this. You can also have a more traditional sitting position by putting the guitar like this on your thigh. Or you can do kind of the classical guitar style and put this surface on your left thigh if you're right-handed and play like that. So lots of different options in the seated position. Standing, and we'll check it out with a strap later on in the video. You have 2 strap pins here in somewhat atypical locations. So we'll see how it balances later on in this video. Let's now check out the sounds from this bass. Let's start with the volume all the way up and the tone knob wide open. So 100%, there's only one pickup. So let's give it a listen. Let's roll that tone knob down to 75%. Let's roll that tone knob down to about 50. Let's roll it down to about 25%. Now let's roll that tone knob all the way closed. 0. Okay, let's now hear this bass in the context of a drum track, and we'll see how these different sounds sit in with the drums. We have 4 passes to this comparison track. In the first one, we have the tone knob wide open at 100. In the second, we have the tone knob at 75. In the third pass, we'll have that tone knob rolled back to 50. And in the fourth and final pass, we'll roll that tone knob down to 25. Let's go. I hope you enjoyed that playing example. Please let me know what you thought of the tones by leaving a comment below. What are my thoughts on this guitar? I think this is really cool. I'm not usually a headless bass player. A long time ago, I owned a headless Zon. I think it was called the VB4. Now, that was a great sounding headless bass. I got it mostly for the graphite neck, and so it was small and I could, easily travel with it. The biggest problem I had with that bass is there was no headstock at all. There wasn't an extra flange or flare. There was nothing there. And I remember doing a hotel gig, and at the end of the night, a bit of showmanship, you kind of whip your bass off the strap, and like on a Fender, you have something to grab onto. But the Zon kind of almost completely flew off my hand. And thankfully, I caught it in time, and it didn't smash into a million pieces on the stage. And to my knowledge, thankfully, no one caught that on video either. But that experience kind of turned me a bit off headless basses. But, it's been a long time, so I wanted to check this one out again. Mostly because it's tiny, really compact, but yet maintaining the 30-inch short scale that I'm used to playing. So, overall, the construction is pretty good. It feels like a solid bass. It doesn't feel flimsy or cheap, but there are a few issues I should point out. First of all, if you've been kind of a longer time viewer of my channel, I'm super picky about neck pockets. And this neck pocket is a bit on the loosey goosey side. There's a visible gap. You probably can't put a business card in it, but there is a visible gap on both sides. Have a look at these pictures. The fretwork is okay. On this side, there is no fret sprout at all. And I'll put up another photo for you to see here. All the fret ends are buried within the fretboard, so no fret sprout on this end. On this end, however, There are the occasional sharp edge. It's not fret sprout, but it's the way the edge of the frets are filed. And I'll put my glove up to the microphone so you can kind of appreciate this. Can you hear that? So I think the fret edges on this side could use a little bit more of a more careful file. I would also say that the frets are a bit on the flat side, but I think that's a choice in wire. I think for a bass of this style that it kind of screams to be modern and contemporary and potentially lending itself well to more aggressive modern playing styles. I would have liked to have seen a taller, rounder fret on this style of guitar. But that's very much a personal preference. Let's talk about the hardware. Overall, I think this monorail bridge is well designed and well built. It has a very substantial, solid feeling to it. And the saddle is adjusted pretty easily with the included Allen keys, so no issues there. The tuners, however, what I would say is they turn a bit on the stiffer side. They still turn fine, but you can feel the resistance, and sometimes you get kind of a squeaking, not smooth sensation as well. Let me demonstrate here. So you can hear that kind of noise on the tuning screw when you turn it, and it's a bit of a turn off there. But otherwise, these pots turn nicely, so that's good. Up here behind the nut, this clamping device is holding the strings very securely. And what I would say is, since I've had the bass, since I've set it up and tuned it up, it stays in tune remarkably well. I think a big factor is there's no play in the string. It passes through the nut in a perfect straight line, and this clamping device is very secure. The problem, and I think there are two problems here. The first one is, as you can see here, there's nowhere to put the cut string ends. The reality here is, unless you get your cut right perfectly flush with the device, you're always going to have sharp ends. And that becomes a problem if you are not careful. You could potentially stab yourself, draw some blood from the string ends. I've seen other headless designs where the string actually passes through a small channel that allows you to conceal and hide those string ends. That, unfortunately, is a feature that is missing from this clamping device. The other issue I want to point out just visually here is I do not believe this clamping device will accept a larger or heavier string than the included 105 low E string here. Why is that important? It's potentially important for people who want to have a down-tuned bass or use heavier strings or have a BEAD tuned string, strung bass rather, and have a low B string here. I'm not convinced just looking at the width of the channel, and I'll put up a picture for you to have a closer look. I'm not convinced you can put a 130 gauge in there. The way around it, if you wanted to have this a BEAD strung bass, you would have to find yourself a short scale set with a low B, and that way you can probably then get your low B strung in there. But as it is, I'm not convinced I can get a 130 gauge in that clamping mechanism. Let's now talk about the sounds available on this bass. The first thing you notice is there's only a single pickup in the so-called sweet spot position. Now this bass has 24 frets. There's your 24th fret right there. So this pickup position is almost exactly in the middle between the 24th fret and the saddle, and that lends it visual balance. However, on a short scale bass, I'm not necessarily convinced that is the pickup acoustic sweet spot for this bass. And as a result, this bass, it has a very articulate sound, almost stingray-ish from from this pickup position, but on its own, it lacks some of the natural warmth you may want from a short scale bass. Allow me to demonstrate that. So I'm gonna have the tone knob all the way up and the volume all the way up. Okay. Now this pickup position is measuring a little over 3 inches from the saddle, and I'll put up a picture for you to have a look here. On some of my other short scale basses, like for instance on my red Mustang, the middle of that neck P pickup is measuring almost, I think over 5.5 inches from the saddle. And on my F bass, it measures 5. So let's hear the difference. So low E. On this bass, I'm just gonna hot unplug this. I'm gonna run this bass wide open. Now this P pickup is quite a bit further away from the saddle than the Hils is. You see how there's a lot more of that natural warmth from purely the pickup positioning. So is that necessarily a bad thing? Maybe, but also maybe not. By having the pickup position way back here, you do get a more articulate, brighter, more mid-range focused sound, which for some modern contemporary styles is probably exactly what you want. But as a buyer going into this, what you need to know is this bass by itself is not a warm, gushy, pillowy sounding bass. Not at all. It's a kind of a brighter, clackier, mid-range focused tone. And I think you need to know that going in. This bass will not sound like a Fender, will not sound like a Mustang bass, and it doesn't sound like most of the other short scale basses on the market, which probably is an advantage for this bass. Now in terms of ergonomics and playing comfort, as I mentioned earlier in the video, there are a few different ways you can kind of position the bass on your body. There's the kind of the classical guitar style. You can rest it on this thumb and have more easy high fret access. I'm more of a traditional position seated player, so I tend to still like having the bass in this position. And here, balances pretty well on my lap. So that is due to the headless design. What I would say is if you're used to playing short scale Fenders, Mustangs and the like, this will feel very foreign to you at first because all the balance points are different. But after you get used to it, you will find that you're saving a lot of energy not holding the headstock up with your fretting hand. And this balances quite well on the lap. Put the other way, this will tend to kind of go that way, but I think that is easily remedied by having the classical guitar position here, and this stays up by itself. Let's see how it's like on a Strat. I say it balances pretty well. Now, in terms of overall aesthetic and design, this clearly is leaning towards the modern and contemporary type look and overall vibe and aesthetic. So I think you either like this type of shape or you don't, and you either find it visually appealing or you don't. For me, I will say as a shape I'm not used to holding or seeing. And when I first saw it, my first thought was it was like a Strandberg bass mated with, the Bootsy Collins Star bass. And they had a baby and this was the result. So I think either you like it or you don't. All right, other things that came in the package. I bought this base with my own money from Anderton's, and these are now selling at Anderton's for £499, and that roughly is about 900 Canadian dollars, give or take, which is not inexpensive. The other issue I ran into is shipping from Anderton's to Canada ended up being pretty substantial. It was over £100. And on top of that, I had to pay shipping and duty. I had to pay taxes and duty. So this base is not inexpensive. But you do get from Hils, oh, look, there's a quality control card and there's a picture of the captain. But you do get this pretty quality looking gig bag with double backpack straps. And it has a removable neck support inside. I would say this padding is probably in the 20 millimeter thickness type range. Other things you should be aware of. Due to the shape of the body and the presence of these two kind of rubber bumpers that they've screwed into the body here, this base will not fit on the typical guitar stand or rack. Let me demonstrate. So this is a pretty run-of-the-mill quick lock stand. The bottom part is similar to a lot of those kind of triangular guitar stands. The only difference is this one has a removable neck holder. So if I were to put this on this stand here, the rubber bumpers are sitting on the ground and the body's not actually sitting on the stand. Which is, I suppose, not a big deal because with the neck cradle, it's not going to go anywhere. However, if you were to use a guitar rack like this setup, let's move the fender out of the way. This base, due to this part of the body here, will not sit on the stand particularly well at all. I mean, you can wedge it in, it kind of works, but precarious. And if you flip it the other way, that's okay, but the bottom of the body, so now this part is touching the ground. So is that a deal breaker? I don't think so, but you should be aware that it won't fit on kind of a run-of-the-mill guitar rack easily, unless you have it kind of this way, and even then, this part is touching the ground on my rack. Now, really cool feature on this Hils base. I looked under the hood and I took the pick guard off, and what you see is a gigantic cavity here. What does that mean? It means if you are kind of interested in modding guitars like me, there is a big space for you to experiment with different pickups and different pickup configurations, and more importantly, different pickup placements. So in that area, you can, if you really wanted to, you could put a pair of J-bass pickups in there. You could put two soap bars side by side. You could do any number of combinations because there's a giant cavity there. Of course, you will have to then make yourself a new pick guard. But the good thing there is all the routing's been already done for you. So you don't need to worry about chipping off more wood. All the cavities look like they've been covered with shielding paint, which is really good. And here in the back cavity, they're using full-size pots, so thumbs up for that. And there's quite a lot of room in here. So should you ever decide to go with an active EQ or preamp, there's probably enough room for a battery, although I haven't tried myself. So overall, what do I think of this bass? I think this is really cool. I like the fact that it is very different compared to everything else I own and everything I typically play, both visually and sonically. And I think that can open up new creative opportunities and allow you to kind of play a little differently than you normally would. So from that, I find this quite inspiring. The issues I have with the bass, we've already kind of gone over. So I don't think this bass is necessarily for everyone. I think the contemporary and modern shape and sound might not lend itself well to kind of more traditional styles of music. But if you need to travel lightly, this could fit the bill for you. So check it out. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you got something out of it. I'll catch you next time.